So I'm going to read a little bit from Aztec Myths and Legends. I left off as a pyramid of skulls. So it says, a pyramid of skulls. The principal fane of Huitzilopochtli was surrounded by upwards of 40 inferior teocallis and shrines. In the Sombantli pyramid of skulls were collected the grisly relics of the countless victims to the implacable war god, or is it implacable? I think it's implacable. Sorry. War god of the Aztecs. And in this horrid structure, the Spanish conquerors counted no less than 136,000 human skulls. In the court of Teopan, which surrounded the temple, were the dwellings of thousands of priests, whose duties included the scrupulous care of the temple precincts, and whose labors were minutely apportioned. Nahua architecture and ruins. As we shall see later, Mexico is by no means so rich in architectural antiquities as Guatemala or Yucatan, the reason being that the growth of tropical forests has to a great extent protected the ancient stone edifices in the latter countries from destruction. The ruins discovered in the northern regions of the Republic are of a ruder type than those which approach more nearly to the sphere of Maya influence, as, for example, those of Mitla, built by the Zapotecs, which exhibit such unmistakable signs of Maya influence that we prefer to describe them when dealing with the antiquities of that people. Cyclopean remains. In the mountains of Chihuahua, one of the most northerly provinces, is a celebrated group called the Casas Grandes, large houses, the walls of which are still about 30 feet in height. These approximate in general appearance to the buildings of more modern tribes in New Mexico and Arizona, and may be referred to such peoples rather than to the Nahua. At Quemada, in Zacatecas, massive ruins of Cyclopean appearance have been discovered. These consist of extensive terraces and broad stone causeways, teocallis which have weathered many centuries, and gigantic pillars, 18 feet in height and 17 feet in circumference. Walls 12 feet in thickness rise above the heaps of rubbish which litter the ground. These remains exhibit little connection with the Nahua architecture to the north or south of them. They are more massive than either, and must have been constructed by some race which had made considerable strides in the art of building. Teotihuacan. In the district of the Totonacs, to the north of Veracruz, we find many architectural remains of a highly interesting character. Here the teocalli, or pyramidal type of building, is occasionally crowned by a covered-in temple, with the massive roof characteristic of Maya architecture. The most striking examples found in this region are the remains of Teotihuacan and Xochicalco. The former was the religious mecca of the Nahua races, and in its proximity are still to be seen the Teocallis of the sun and moon, surrounded by extensive burying grounds, where the devout of Anahuac were laid in the sure hope that if interred, they would find entrance into the paradise of the sun. The Teocalli of the moon has a base covering 426 feet and a height of 137 feet. That of the sun of greater dimensions, with a base of 735 feet and a height of 203 feet. These pyramids were divided into 4 stories, 3 of which remain. On the summit of that of the sun stood a temple containing a great image of that luminary carved from a rough block of stone. In the breast was inlaid a star of the purest gold, seized afterwards as loot by the insatiable followers of Cortes. From the Teocalli of the moon, a path runs to where a little rivulet flanks the citadel. This path is known as the Path of the Dead, from the circumstance that it is surrounded by some 9 square miles of tombs and tumuli, and indeed it forms a road through the great cemetery. The citadel, thinks Charney, was a vast tennis or Tlachtli court, where thousands flocked to gaze at the national sport of the Nawa, with a zest equal to that of the modern devotees of football. Teotihuacan was a flourishing center, contemporary with Tolan. It was destroyed, but was rebuilt by the Chichimec king Xolotl, and preserved thenceforth its traditional sway as the focus of the Nahuatl national religion. Charney identifies the architectural types discovered there with those of Tolan. The result of his labors in the vicinity included the unearthing of the richly decorated pottery, vases, masks, and terracotta figures. He also excavated several large houses or palaces, some with chambers more than 730 feet in circumference, with walls over 7.5 feet thick, into which were built rings and slabs to support torches and candles. The floors were tessellated in various rich designs, like an Aubusson carpet. Charney concluded that the monuments of Teotihuacan were partly standing at the time of the conquest. The Hill of Flowers. Near Texcoco is Xochicalco, the Hill of Flowers, a teocalli, the sculpture of which is both beautiful and luxuriant in design. The porphyry quarries from which the great blocks, 12 feet in length, are cut lie many miles away. As late as 1755, the structure towered to a height of 5 stories, but the vandal has done his work only too well, and a few fragmentary carvings of exquisite design are all that today remain of one of Mexico's most magnificent pyramids. Tolan. We have already indicated that on the site of the Toltec city of Tolan, ruins have been discovered which prove that it was the center of a civilization of a type distinctly advanced. Charney unearthed there gigantic fragments of caryatides, each some 7 feet high. He also found columns of 2 pieces, which were fitted together by means of mortise and tenon, bas-reliefs of archaic figures of undoubted Nawa type, and many fragments of great antiquity. On the hill of Palpan, above Tolan, he found the ground plans of several houses, with numerous apartments, frescoed, columned, and having benches and cisterns, recalling the impluvium of a Roman villa. Water pipes were also actually unearthed, and a wealth of pottery, many pieces of which were like old Japanese china. The ground plan or foundations of the houses unearthed at Palpan showed that they had been designed by practical architects and had not been built in any merely haphazard fashion. The cement which covered the walls and floors was of excellent quality, and recalled that discovered in ancient Italian excavations. The roofs had been of wood, supported by pillars. Picture writing. The Aztecs, and indeed the entire Nawa race, employed a system of writing of the type scientifically described as pictographic, in which events, persons, and ideas were recorded by means of drawings and colored sketches. These were executed on paper made from the agave plant, or were painted on the skins of animals. By these means, not only history and the principles of the Nawa mythology were communicated from generation to generation, but the transactions of daily life, the accountings of merchants, and the purchase and ownership of land were placed on record. That a phonetic system was rapidly being approached is manifested from the method by which the Nawa scribes depicted the names of individuals or cities. These were represented by means of several objects, the names of which resembled that of the person for which they stood. The name of King Ishcoatl, for example, is represented by the drawing of a serpent, Coatl, pierced by flint knives, Itzli, and that of Montezuma, by a mousetrap, Montli, and an eagle, Quautli, a lancelet, So, and a hand, Maitl. The phonetic values employed by the scribes varied exceedingly, so that at times an entire syllable would be expressed by the painting of an object, the name of which commenced with it. At other times only a letter would be represented by the same drawing, but the general intention of the scribes was undoubtedly more ideographic than phonetic. That is, they desired to convey their thoughts more by sketch than by sound. Interpretation of the hieroglyphs. These pinturas, as the Spanish conquerors designated them, offer no great difficulty in their elucidation to modern experts, at least so far as the general trend of their contents is concerned. In this, they are unlike the manuscripts of the Maya of Central America, with which we shall make acquaintance further on. Their interpretation was largely traditional, and was learned by rote, being passed on by one generation of Amamatini readers to another, and was by no means capable of elucidation by all and sundry. Native manuscripts. The pinturas, or native manuscripts, which remain to us, are but few in number. Priestly fanaticism, which ordained their wholesale destruction, and the still more potent passage of time, have so reduced them that each separate example is known to bibliophiles and Americanists the world over. In such as still exist, we can observe great fullness of detail, representing for the most part festivals, sacrifices, tributes, and natural phenomena, such as eclipses and floods, and the death and accession of monarchs. These events and the supernatural beings who were supposed to control them were depicted in brilliant colors, executed by means of a brush of feathers. The interpretative codices. Luckily for future students of Mexican history, the blind zeal which destroyed the majority of the Mexican manuscripts was frustrated by the enlightenment of certain European scholars, who regarded the wholesale destruction of the native records as little short of a calamity, and who took steps to seek out the few remaining native artists, from whom they procured copies of the more important paintings, the details of which were of course quite familiar to them. To those were added interpretations taken down from the lips of the native scribes themselves, so that no doubt might remain regarding the contents of the manuscripts. These are known as the interpretative codices, and are of considerable assistance to the student of Mexican history and customs. 3 only are in existence. The Oxford Codex, treasured by the Bodleian Library, is of a historical nature, and contains a full list of the lesser cities which were subservient to Mexico in its palmy days. The Paris or Telerio Remensis Codex, so called from having once been the property of Le Tellier, Archbishop of Reims, embodies the many facts concerning the early settlement of the various Nahua city-states. The Vatican the MSS, deal chiefly with mythology and the intricacies of the Mexican calendar system. So someone just came home. I'm gonna try to whisper the rest. Sorry about any background noise. Sorry about that. Such Mexican paintings as were unassisted by an interpretation are naturally of less value to present-day students of the lore of the Nahua. They are principally concerned with calendric matter, ritualistic data, and astrological computations or horoscopes. The Mexican Book of the Dead. Perhaps the most remarkable and interesting manuscript in the Vatican collection is one of the last pages of which represent the journey of the soul after death to the gloomy dangers of the other world. This has been called the Mexican Book of the Dead. The corpse is depicted dressed for burial, the soul escaping from its earthly tenement by way of the mouth. The spirit is ushered into the presence of Tezcatlipoca, the Jupiter of the Aztec pantheon, by an attendant dressed in an ocelot skin, and stands naked with the wooden yoke round the neck before the deity to receive sentence. The dead person is given